Hey guys, this is Simon with Trade and Perform Coaching doing the trade review for, let's see, today's Monday, the 19th of August. So, first of all, I hope everyone had a really good day. I personally thought the markets kind of sucked, but there were trading opportunities there, importantly, right? Both in ES and CL. Today we're going to cover a little bit of both of them, but what I really want to cover, and mostly for the members in the room and the guys and gals that I'm one-on-one coaching, right? On where I should have adjusted on my CL trade. Okay, so one of the things that I do when I'm trading, or I like to do when I'm trading, is really focus on staying on process, letting the trade go to my target, fill me, right, and not jump around on my entries and exits, so on and so forth. Why? Because it's not that I don't get it right sometimes, it's just too many times I cut that trade short. Or I really mess up. So I want to do two things. I want to limit myself to taking my best trades. And once I make the commitment to the trade, I want to stay in the trade. Usually that benefits me. Today it kind of bit me in the backside, and I'm going to show you all where. So here you can see what my actual work was for the day over here to the left. All right? And what I'm going to do is duplicate the chart and draw this thing out. And I want to accomplish two things. I want to show you why today did not work. Where I could have been, number one, why it did work and why it did not work, right? Because at one point I had 28 ticks on the trade, right? And profits, good, $280 a contract, right? But I ended up down 15 cents on my stop. And actually what it would have been net, if we think it through, would have actually been 15 cents in profit, and I took 15 cents in loss. It was a 1-for-1 because I took it half size. And I'll explain that in a minute as well. But let's get started. So number one, let's duplicate this chart, and then we'll come back to the work that we actually did here. As that's being duplicated, it'll take care of itself. Be able to find it here in a second. And we will come over here. And what we're going to do is, number one, look at the risks. Okay. So starting on ES, when we started the day, I'm looking for the support resistance zones and where we need to get to. And they were actually quite spread out. The first significant, what I thought was support or resistance, was up at 56.80. The next significant area was all the way down at 52.60. And in between, we just simply had unfairly auctioned prices. And you can see all night long we rejected out of the bottom, the middle, and the back of the unfair prices, which that's all the market had to trade off of, right? So that's what it used. But in the end, we tend to want to travel from anomaly to anomaly, and looks like they're going to make an attempt at the 56.80, 57. So that's what the big picture looked like, and that came off of the profile. All right. Number two, when I go back and look at the profile, I know that I'm going to try to keep this brief. And that's ES. Let's jump over here to CL really quick, so we'll lower it. CL, 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 there we go. There's a CL trade. And there we go. And the first thing that we would have noticed this morning, so this is a US session only profile, both TPO and volume profile. All right, so the first thing you're going to notice is we gapped up. I saw that this morning. That kind of gives you the reason to take pause for a moment, because if you can't get back into Dalton's gap fill, that tells you that buyers are in overall control, right? Secondly, if we're going to reject, we'd want to get to unfair pricing, at least from the only session above that had been unauctioned, or to the naked point of control, naked TPO point of control. We didn't make it there, right? So then, if I don't have any key areas, right? Usually I'm looking for the naked volume points of control, unfair prices, or anomalies that are in unfair prices, and over-under patterns. If I don't get any of those from the profile, then all I can rely on is what I see from momentum waves, right? And looking for traps, meaning springs back into price action, and head and shoulders patterns, right? So we're effectively, let's lower this, left with nothing, right? Because I don't have a key area to trade against because they're simply so far away, right? So that was the first clue, not to be overly active, right? The next clue was to go look at where it gets exhausted. And so I'm going to erase this as if we have nothing on here and draw this out. And draw it out afterwards where obviously I can make it perfect. Whereas in real time, you're having to evaluate as the PA is going through the course of the day, right? So as you evaluate, you have, this was a potential left shoulder over here from early in the morning, right? And the reason why it became a left shoulder instead of a head and shoulders pattern was because what you really wanted to see was to kind of get over this swing over here, which you'll see it's exactly what it did. See how I got over that fractal? That fractal is that little triangle right on top. See how we established above? Then they tried to press below. But what I'm looking for in that process is to get an intraday head and shoulders setup, right? And that only left me with 2 areas that I could have worked. This did not work for head and shoulders, and the reason why is if you look to the left, anywhere close, right, we simply did not get far enough above this leg here for me to consider that a valid head and shoulders. It was just barely peekabooed over. It was good enough for a trap back in and a roll down overnight, but it was not good enough for a head and shoulders pattern. And the reason I want a head and shoulders pattern is because they tend to develop these huge swings to the downside and to the upside when they set up off the right shoulder. That's why I'm looking for them, right? In addition to the algo and the trend line breaks, so on and so forth, right? So guys, in the room, if we're working a trade setup, right, we know that this probably isn't going to be a right shoulder. That one just simply didn't set up properly. So what we're looking for is a punch above here. We get the punch above here, right? That's all really, really cool. So if we get the punch above, right, well, then we have to ask ourselves, what is the market going to use as the entry for that trade? So I don't like going back to the swing from the prior day, particularly when it was overnight on Friday. So all I was left with is trying to make a head and shoulders out of this little area, right, and either here or here. And I was uncertain as to which one I was going to use. They were both candidates, this and this. Okay, so there's our first step. We identified a potential head and shoulders, right? Number 2, we need, if we're going to get a big head and shoulders, we need a big show of an attempted push to the downside, right? That's step number 2 in this process. And we get that right here, right? Now, you know the trade setups, right? You've got wave 1, wave 2, and now we have some possibilities here. We've had wave 1, wave 2, potential left shoulder. I'm going to draw this up right over here. All right. Now the only thing I don't have is a key resistance point. That's the only thing I'm missing over here. And in my mind, what I'm thinking is, hey, can I get a retest or an attempt at this swing low down here, that 54.80? I obviously don't think we're going to go from 56.11 to 54.80 or even 55, but 55.90, I don't think we're going to go in a straight line. But can we attempt back down maybe into this cradle or into this support area? All right. Okay. So rewind back. I get the first push down, and what I do is I come over here and I switch charts to a little bit bigger range because I want some perspective. Right. And what I do to do that is I pull up a 30 range chart, and I notice that my algorithm is triggering me for a potential short right here. The color of the bar is not just that it's a down bar, it's the speed in which it was created. There's a fractal above it. There's the down arrow indicates to me we'll often get follow through from those down arrows to the downside or to the upside in both cases, right? So I am looking for that next. That is the next piece that I'm looking for, and it develops, right? So right about, once I see that shift down, I come back in the rim, and I'm going to show you how you get pinpoint accuracy, right? So if you'll notice right up here, okay, I put, where was I? CL. I guess I announced it in the room. I didn't type it. Oh, I have a limit using a 30-tick range bar at 55.73 with a 50. That did not make sense. That did not make sense. So let me tell you what I actually meant to type. I was actually working quite quickly. Limit 55.73 with a 33-tick stop. I don't know where I got that 55.65. 55.73. I couldn't get filled the first time it went up there. I lowered back to 55.72, and I finally got filled at 55.72. 34 tick stop. First scale, 55.42 was the target down, right? So I want to go back to this. So I am using that larger range, right? I'm using the potential head and shoulders. If you look, that 55.72 lines up with keeping this as the left shoulder. I would like to keep the right shoulder, which is forming over here, underneath the left shoulder. I'm consolidating underneath that left shoulder. And then what I'd like to see is it come back and kiss that key area. And I'm trying to grab this 55.73. And it comes right to 55.73. It does not fill me. So I lower, it rolls off. I lower my entry back to 55.72. Comes back up one more time. And then, if you'll notice, it gives me this beautiful roll down right to the low of 55.43. My limit to cover is 55.42. Why? I'm trying to get a round number, 30 ticks, and I figured we could make it just at least underneath this little lip right here for a roll back to the upside. So, in pausing, the trade was an absolute success. We had pinpoint entry location. I was allowing for the grindiness of the environment. I put a little bit bigger stop and cut my trade size. All of that is for wins, right? I could see that we just weren't in super high volatility, right? But the trade obviously didn't go, I didn't get covered here, and I actually had a distraction in the room, and I did not cover. I attempted to move to 55.47. I couldn't get that filled, and I let it come all the way back against me and run to my stop and stop me out. Major fumble, right? And my goal was to get done by 11 o'clock. I let this trade stop me out. And so where did things go wrong is the natural question that I want to look at so I can correct for next time. Right? You'll see the question marks. So what that looked like, right, is I'm going to bring the other chart up over here. Because we had this channel, which I was fine with, because I was hoping this would turn into a bear flag. See, when we broke down, I put these question marks right here, and I thought we could possibly get a push back in towards 55, back down into this cradle right over here to the left. And it didn't work out. How could have I told or been able to see that it wouldn't work out? And I'm going to answer the question because that's where I want to improve tomorrow. Right? So the goal is to see what I did well. So this is the list of what I did well. I waited patiently for potential head and shoulders. I waited to see sellers show up in the trade first before trying to execute my trade instead of guessing where sellers would show up. What I did well next is I placed my limit at a key area where I thought I had a high odds of not taking too much heat. And then lastly, I didn't place a mega tight stop, even though I could have in this case, right? Because I wanted to give the trade a little bit of room, right? Because I was pretty confident we could get a retrace back into the 62 retrace and actually break that 62 retrace from high to low. Okay, that was the plan, right? And the 62 retrace, by the way, was all the way back here at 55.30 from the move below. We just didn't get there. What I did wrong. Usually when we get this head and shoulders pattern, what you'll see is after the initial selling, right? It's not unusual to get two waves down, but the second wave tends to not be bigger than the first wave down, number one, okay? And that became a problem. Why did it become a problem? Because if you go back to our other setups, right, because we're kind of playing a multi-level chess game at the same time, right? So if you look at this, right, wave one, but wave two was giant, right? See that right there? Wave two was giant. Why was that a problem? Because if we get a point of control after all that investment to the downside, see how we exactly came back up and tested that? We tested into the first wave without clearing above the top of the second wave. So what I should have done, right, what I should have done is simply said, if we close above this big wave down, I need to cover and or possibly flip, right there. Okay, I did not do that, right? Even with that, that would have ended up being about an 8-cent stop on half size. 4 pennies, right, in exchange for 30 ticks. And I just simply got distracted and didn't stay on point there. And that would have changed my day from down 15 cents to down 4 cents. Or had I gotten a little bit lucky and actually would have gotten one more penny on the downside, I would have actually ended up with a nice trade on the day. Had no risk, been able to cover and walk away profitably. That didn't happen. So then my last question on my checklist is, well then what the heck does it look like when it works properly? I can answer that question pretty rootin' tootin' darn well. I can go back to multiple areas, but particularly Friday morning. I was trading very, very early on Friday morning. I want to show you all this. Okay, so if you look, I am looking for a potential trap back in or a head and shoulders. All right. The only thing I had to work off of Friday morning was this swing off to the left. CL, if you know anything about CL, loves to come over, break just back above, and trap back in. Okay. So I don't like using the head and shoulders from a prior day, but I have alternatives to that setup if I want to use it. And this is what I ended up with. Let's see, how was I going to lay this out? Assuming that this break was going to actually trap us back into the downside, right? What I was looking for was wave, wave, right? I'm going to draw the lines over that, wave, top of the wave of the next wave. And then my algo is what pushes me in on this trade, because I get a speed bar shift down right here in this. You know what? I stand corrected. I apologize. I was not up at that hour. So what that was a trap back in. There's the sell wave. I'm sorry, I did not take this trade. I know for a fact I was not up that early because I'm supposed to be looking on Friday instead of Monday. Let's go back there. There we go. Now that makes sense. So looking back to the left, again, I'm looking for head and shoulders. Forgive me, guys. There's no, I was saying I wasn't up that early, so there's no way to take the trade. Let's draw this one more time. Friday, now I'm going to get to show you what that looks like when done properly. Friday morning, we are zooming straight up. I don't like to short straight up. I had one of two possibilities for a head and shoulders, right? I could have used this, right, coming back from late Thursday. And what you'll notice is, again, when you're looking off to the left, the market loves to kind of poke its head above these levels, right? And you just got to get good at identifying the head and shoulders where they possibly line up. However, when I'm looking on Thursday, because again, I like them on this range bar to set up within that same time frame, you simply could not have a head and shoulders over here. There was nothing to trap back into, right? But over here, right, over here in this little area, you could have, but then let's go back to Friday, right? So I have these swings, and the top of this swing ends up all the way over here, and potentially over here, and then finally over here. So see how it likes to poke its head right above those swings to the left, because the next one was going to end up all the way up here. That wasn't going to do. So next, watch the process take place, right? So as I'm pushing up, I'm going to go, hey, right, just like I coach it, guys. Potential head and shoulders. And then I get this part. I love it when it's sharply angled, right? Potential head and shoulders right here, right? I would have needed it. If this was going to be my head, I now need to close back in. I'm really going to go with this over here to the left. But I still don't like it at that point yet. So remember, we're pushing in towards 5 in the morning now, right? Still too far away. I want it intraday. So if you look, you finally get this final pump. And that final pump had some pretty cool stuff going on in it. It had the biggest delta push, right? And I got relatively little response, right? So look at this delta push, right? We push, right? We never get underneath this wave, and then we get residual push afterwards, and it breaks up above. But now this is simply the biggest push of that entire session right here at 3:48 a.m., right? So see, at this point, if I close back into this wave, I would want to be short, particularly on a shift down. Now, I didn't get everything I would want right here, meaning I got a speed bar, I got a fractal, I did not get a shift down, and that sucks. So I'd have one or two choices. I'm either going to take this with a willing to stop on that bar. It's going to be an 18-cent stop on that trade, right? Or I'm going to wait till I truly get my proper setup, and I'm going to show you where that came. Because what I don't have to this point, and I'm going to shorten this, I'm not going to cover the ES. I'll just cover it really briefly. Okay, to this point, when I'm looking over here, what I don't have on that Friday, so I'm going to push a little bit over, excuse me. I went too far. Let's scoot this over. Gotta love it when things go slow. There we go. What I don't have at this point is I have no presence of sellers, right? So for all you can tell, that could be a trend line up or trend day up, right? So now when I look at this, now I've got sellers, don't I? Now I've got sellers. And I've got an impulse move, and I've got the biggest extension to the downside, right? Now, in this particular case, right here at 5 in the morning, what I did have was a close back into the prior wave and a roll to the downside. But let me tell you what really sets up now. As we skate over, right, see that first push down? They almost always find a way to come back up against it. And see that right there? That huge push right there, and it puts a fractal right up on top right over here. So I want to spread that out. So my first trade, I had a short, you know what, I must have ended up taking this close back into the wave with a stop right here because I took a trade at 5 or 5:30 in the morning for a short initially. So I probably, my guess is I cheated over here and took the original trade, but where the better trade showed up, and I'm going purely off of memory, but I know I shorted that, right? So now remember, I know almost every time, see how it doesn't get back to the 50-60? But I know when I get an impulse move like that, I'm going to press back into the 50-60. That's this right here. Now remember, I'm now working off the concept or idea that this over here, here's my arrow, this over here is my left shoulder. I don't want it to get back above. B, I've pressed back up, right, into the 50-60, and I'm looking for a rejection out of that location. Now, there's my algo triggering me in to the short. And I do remember this trade. I was ended up being short 54.81 because I took this trade right here. And let me tell you why I took that trade. There's my, I followed process all the way through. Right, up, wave up, right. See how it got above? And I simply said, this is my last wave, right. If I shift back down below, either below that wave or back into this wave, right here, you know what, I gotta tell you, I may have cheated there too. What did I do? I don't remember back to Friday. That is the top of that wave. I shorted, I want to say I want to shorted 54.81 against 56.10 is what I want to say I shorted. It may have been 54.91. I may have shorted 54.81 or 54.82, but either way it was against 55.10. In either case, it was behind this location right here, and I know it was short, right? And now I'm looking for a bigger leg to the downside, right? And if you look from where you entered that trade, it's exactly what I was trying to garner today, right? We pushed all the way up, and then from this 54, whether it was 81 or 91, we pushed all the way down to 54.25, and I know I covered this trade, the majority of the trade at 54.25 into the downside rotation. Now, right? That's a fat trade. If you sit and waited patiently, right? And that's the only trade you got. Taking it from 54.91 or 54.81 all the way down to 54.25, that's $500-600 a contract, and you're done by 9 in the morning. Pretty damn good, right? But here's the key of why this trade worked, and today's trade came slamming back against me without setting up from a lower level. See how this is my first push down, and it's ginormous? And we simply never stood a chance, right, of getting back above that wave. Once we impulse moved below, the second wave wasn't larger, right? And so then the last thing I'm going to do my homework, because I want to be repetitive and make sure that I have the setups done correctly, right? So I'm going to go back over here, and I'm going to find my last setup, my last head and shoulders setup that I could have used for my next trade, right? And you can see it's drawn out over here to the right as well. So I'm going to show this to you. This was on Thursday, and this was from 55, right? So you see my left shoulder, right? And now I know immediately, so I'm going to erase all these lines, right? And so the first thing you'll notice, 3 big waves up, right? And then I come and kind of poke my head above. So I have potential. Let's see, a little bit to the left. And I need a fractal to form on top, which I finally got over here. You didn't have it over here initially. So if this is going to be my left shoulder over here, right? I need to now come back above. There's my fractal. And then this whole thing ends up being the head. So that this ends up being my left shoulder. I know it's boring, right? That's how this works out. Next, following process. Big wave up. We close above that big wave up. Here's the next big thrust. Doesn't break to a high. I need it to break to a high because I don't have a fractal. Then finally, we do break to a high on a pretty good delta push. And then that immediately closes back in. I immediately go, hey, I've got a good place to set up a short entry, stop to begin with, and potential left shoulder. But now I want to see the seller step in. Notice this is my sellers stepping in right over here. Right? Now I want to do the exact same thing. I want to look for a 50-60 retrace. And in the course of that 50-60 retrace, worst case scenario, right? I don't. How do I end up taking this trade? So this was the original short, no retrace, wave 1 down, wave 2 down, making wave 1, wave 2. Wow, that kind of sucks. Hold on just 1 second. Wave 1, wave 2, rejection out of wave 2. I know I was short on that day too. Wave 1, wave 2, don't get above the left shoulder. So it doesn't set up on the right. Actually, I have to wait for a second setup over here. So it comes down, comes down. I would have needed this. Oh, I see, because I missed the sequence, didn't I? I stand corrected, guys. Uninterrupted, wave 1 down, wave 2 down. Alright, so let's erase this here real quick. Redraw it. That's why this takes a lot of focus. Shoulder, head, trend line, break, wave up, close back into wave, wave 1 down, wave 2 down, which now makes wave 1 your major resistance, which would be this right, 1, 2, 3. That becomes your major resistance, which works as it's supposed to. Then your sellers have shown up. Your 50-60 only gives you a small counter rotation because you need to get back in here, which means you need the second count, and you don't want to close above the top of your left shoulder, which it does not. So they press all the way up into this left shoulder, right? I think this is the day we actually pulled out a boatload of P&L out of this. Guys, I don't remember back to last Thursday, right? So if you look, what are the requirements? 50-60 back, right? And it doesn't get back in. Now, usually, when it comes back to test this right side, it'll set up one more time on the momentum waves, right? So if you look, here's wave 1, 2, right? They attempt to close back in out of that 50-60, bust them. 3, 4, biggest push up, right? Fails to break the left shoulder. Now you do speed bar shift down. Speed bar shift down in here, you did not out of the 50-60. That speed bar shift down was late. Biggest push up, and then you need the other pieces to set into place. Wave 1 down, wave uninterrupted, wave 2, wave 1 becomes your resistance. Bam, backside test on the 50-60. Your left shoulder holds, right? Speed bar shift down, and there you get your roll if you're late entry, if you shorted up here, right, you have two choices. You can short right into here, just close it if it closes above your left shoulder, right? As it is, your right shoulder is forming slightly lower than your left shoulder. Push right in, just use the stop behind, which means you can use literally pennies on your stop, right? Roll down one. Here comes your 50-60 back to give you the backside test of that wave, right? And then roll down two. So you could have either shorted all the way up here at 54.80, 54.90 again, right? Or you could have taken this 54.50. I remember the sequence now. I shorted originally up here in this 54.80, 54.90. Now I remember what I did. 54.80, 54.90 because I put in my notes. I did not re-short over here, and I should have been more aggressive on this, right? And then we ended up with the AB equals CD extension. And then this is what I wanted today to do, which was just come underneath this swing low and then pop back up and squeeze to the upside. It didn't happen. Long story short, I'm sorry I went off because, of course, the whole point of this is not just for you to get better, but it's also for me to get better. I did not see the setup. I did not see that setup short. But when you see the AB equals CD, or even within this where you could have made a left shoulder, you could have done this one more time over here, right? Where you did left shoulder, head, close back in, and you see where your sellers show up in both cases. Your sellers show up here, your sellers show up here. You want to wait till you get this first down wave, and hopefully when that wave sets up, it's an AB wave that lets you backside test that A wave to get the bigger roll to the downside. So we modified that a little bit today, but we got great entry. I goofed getting out of the trade. That's all there is to it. Anyways, long story short, that is how I set up the trades. It's not easy, right? It's not like, oh, that's the level, just short it. I'm reading the PA, I'm watching how it sets up. I'm looking for who's trapped, who's exhausted, right? But it lets me get these giant rolls up and down on CL. And usually I can get them for more than 30 ticks, so it kind of sucks when you don't get scaled there. I try to be patient and grab those 30 ticks. And that's how you get paid. It can be learned. I do share it with the room. If you'd like to come join us in the room, send me an email. It's tradeandperform, TRADENPERFORM @gmail.com. All that work for 1 or 2 trades a day, 3 trades a day maybe. But those trades tend to have great extensions. So today the net was minus 15 cents on CL. I missed my 30-cent scale. That's all there was to it. And I missed it by a penny, and I'm pretty okay with that consequence, right? So we just come back and try again tomorrow, right? So anyways, that's my 2 cents. I hope everyone had a great day. I will be back at it in the morning. Remember, stay focused. Don't overtrade slow, grinding markets, which is exactly what we have, right? The markets flip, right? Last week we had these nice up and down rotations, and then news comes out on Friday, and everyone's like, oh, the whole downside's over, and you're like, it can't possibly be that way. But it is. It literally flips on a light switch sometimes. And they'll grind and grind and grind and grind. So now I would say, unless the grinding changes, the rotations open up significantly to the downside. On CL, CL's always the same, but on ES, we're looking for rotations down, trap late sellers, grab those sellers and push to the upside. Don't over leverage unless you know how to stack a trade, and learn the art. It takes some time, but the money is there if you learn how to trade it. Have a great day. My name is Simon. Email me if you have any questions. This went a lot longer, but it's a good trade review for me. And what we're looking for, guys in the room, what we are looking for, the best setup within that head and shoulders is to get this 1-2 punch, right? Even here today, where we can come back up, grab the second side of that punch, even though it didn't result in the big extension today, right? We had really good tactical location of where to grab that trade with a clean stop, right? And even though today it didn't yield that big push to the downside, it will in the future. And I want to show one last thing, guys. I apologize. If you look overnight, right, you ended up with the same thing. See this over here? Or let me draw it up. Even though I wasn't here to trade it. Push down. Big push down. See how these guys pushed? This was the first wave. This is a big second wave right here, right? This trade set up properly. But then you get your buyers off this left side over here. See when they push right here? Here's push 1, it fails. But on that push, you wouldn't think they'd close back into that push 1, right? When you see that your buyers have shown up like this, the other part that I should have looked for, and actually what I was pushing for is, we could have gotten a test into that left shoulder from that buy wave, would have made a really nice long for an extension up. It just didn't set up, right? And then the other difficult part about this is, if you look, this is the point of control above, but once it got above, it never backside tested the left side of that head and shoulders for the upside move. So I wouldn't have caught it. They don't always set up. The key is that you're aware that the potential is there. They do backside test the longs just as much as they backside test the shorts. You just have to be prepared to find that trade, right? And then the last piece is try to line it up with your 30 range on CL and see if you can get a speed bar set up for those bigger rotations down. Anyways, my name is Simon. Have a great night, guys. I am off to spend some time with the family. See y'all.